With tire clearance that verges into gravel territory, paired to classy road handling and aesthetics, the 51 Sika is a remarkable road bike. I've been testing this off and on for a few months now with a few different wheel and tire combos in Colorado and here in New Mexico. There's lots of subtle personality in the details, the stays, the fork, the cockpit. It's not outrageous in any one direction, but it is a damn fine bike. This video is supported by Feedback Sports, which has the new Pro Tool tray, clamps tidily onto a work stand, and the new T-handle set of all the main hex sizes and 3 torque sizes. In this video, I'll talk about the frame, I'll talk about the Shimano 12-speed Ultegra Di2 group, I'll talk about the capability and the handling of this bike, which I put in the all-road / endurance / new school road bike category. Plus, I'll give you some thoughts on integrated cockpits, this one in particular, and some tips on things you should consider when you're looking at a bike with any sort of integrated cockpit as far as how you get the thing to fit. I will put that at the end. Let's start with the brand and the name on the down tube, 51. It's a small Irish brand. Aidan Duff started this brand as a custom carbon frame builder. Now he makes stock bikes. I met Aidan back in the starting corral of the Sea Otter gravel race a couple years ago. I was on a Da Vinci with a suspension fork, and he, of course, was on a 51, the Assassin gravel bike. Let's start with the frame, talk about how that affects feel and handling, and then we'll work our way out to the parts, including critically the tires, how those affect feel and handling, and even geometry. Yes, tires affect your geometry. At first glance, the Sika looks like a straight ahead road bike, but closer inspection reveals some fine details like the split wishbone, slightly dropped chainstays, both of which account for that 40 mil tire clearance. The fork is narrow, sits a little bit front of center, and handling is relatively quick. The head tube depends on size as far as the angle, but it's in the 72 plus range, which puts it in that racier side of all road bikes. Not an out and out race bike handling, but pretty darn close. Bottom bracket is super low, 78 mil of drop. That's firmly in gravel territory, while the tires, up to 40 mil is on the skinny end of gravel. That super low bottom bracket is definitely in gravel territory. What does that mean? Planted is a word that I and others use to talk about how that feels, and that your center of gravity is lower in the bike, in between the two wheels. This means you shouldn't be pedaling long cranks through fast corners in a criterium, but this bike, absolutely, you could race it. The handling feels quite racy, feels nimble, which I love. Stack the vertical height from the bottom bracket to the top of the frame and reach that fore aft measurement from the center of the bottom bracket to the center of the head tube are a little bit taller and a little bit shorter than a straight ahead race bike, and thus this is the all-road endurance bike category. Aidan calls this a road bike. He doesn't put a particular adjective on the front end of it, just calls it a road bike, and I think it excels at exactly that. You want to race it? Sure. You want to ride it comfortably all day? Yep, you can do that too, and still have that nice aesthetic of a pretty slammed looking front end. I love the feel of this bike. It's nimble, yet feels confident, like I feel fine riding no hands to take off the vest or whatnot. The low bottom bracket probably contributes to that planted feel, but the front end doesn't feel sleepy or sluggish at all. There are 2 fork offsets. Someone asked me when I had posted some bits about this on Instagram, hey, how flexy is the fork? Because our man Dave Rome with Escape Collective down in Australia on a smaller size with a different fork noticed a bit of brake rub when really torquing on the bars. I have not experienced that at all. Is that because this is a different fork, a larger bike than he was riding, or it is because Dave is much more yoked than I am and I'm unable to flex the bike? I don't know, but the end result was I have not experienced what Dave did, which was brake rub, either front or rear. Plenty of stiffness, the lateral stiffness that we're after for steering and for acceleration, and critically, you've got that cushy vertical compliance, right? The bike industry's been talking about this for years because it's a thing. It's not like gravel seat post territory, not a huge amount of flex, but it feels decently plush at the rear and at the front. How much of that is due to the squishiness of the saddle? How much is that due to the squishiness of the rider? How much of that is due to the squishiness of the tires? I was able to test with a couple different tires and different tire pressures. These are 32s, also rode some 38 WTB all-road tires, enough to get a good sense that the bike itself, has a nice bit of cush built into it. What's good? What's a good pressure? What's a good width? What's a good tire? What's a good bike? If y'all have been watching my channel for a bit, a refrain I often repeat is it depends on where you live and how you like to ride. Here in Albuquerque, it's a bit rough in a few ways, including the pavement surface often. I'm just looking out here at some of the giant cracks from the freeze-thaw cycle. Those of you who live in Tucson know what I'm talking about, right? You're riding along on pavement and every 20 feet or so, it's just like ka-gang, ka-gang, ka-gang. Get that on pavement roads, get that even on the big bike trails along the arroyos here, which I like to ride quite a bit. It was a bear riding skateboards here back in the day. You'd have to ollie the cracks or just deal with that rough hit every so often. With that in mind, the bike I was on before this had 55 mil tires. So I was riding our Schaefer with Schwalbe G1 RS 55s, and those felt like butter on these rough roads. So with these 32s at 50 PSI, I'm about 185 pounds. I wouldn't want to go any skinnier for around here. For super smooth roads, you might not need this much, but I'm happy with 32s. And then going up, it made the handling feel a little bit slower because the wider the tire, the taller the tire, the more trail you add to the figure. Trail affects your handling. A whole lot of trail makes it feel stable, but for a road bike, sluggish. Very little trail makes it handle very quickly. I think this bike is, kind of at the sweet spot with the 32s, but there's a positive correlation. When you're riding in situations where you want more tire, you also want more stability, right? Like if you need squishiness for rough surfaces, you also will probably appreciate a bit of stability in steering. So that's a bonus. Often with bikes, you got to choose one or the other, right? You got to find that balance and sweet spot. And with tires and trail, those two things go hand in hand. The more tire you get, the more trail and stability you have. So that's a nice thing about this bike in particular, and the category in general, is that if you have 40 mil clearance, you don't have to squeeze a 40 in there, right? But you've got the possibility to do so if you like. And critically, you can go and try a few different things. Another thing you can do just to wrap your head around how increasing tire width increases trail is use this calculator. I'll put a link to this guy down below. Quick shout out to Feedback Sports for supporting this channel for going on 3 years now. I've been at this tomfoolery. New Pro Tray stand is handy in that it clamps to any of their seat post clamp frames. All sorts of different nooks and crannies to tuck tools big and small. If you get the new T-handle wrenches, or already have some, there's nice individual slots for each to keep it nice and tidy. I love these T-handles for a few reasons. One, they're fun fidget spinner type things. Two, you can adjust the top bar or even take it out to get into hard to reach places like your bottle cage bolts, or just to adjust the the leverage that you have. And the manufacturing tolerance is tight, which is why they cost a bit more than some other tools. Tight tolerances are a good thing with tools because you don't want to strip out your bolts. This tray's also got a place to put your phone if you want to watch, your favorite YouTube pals while you're working. There's a little magnetic tray here to keep your small bits from disappearing into the desert landscape below. It's nice to have your tools right at hand, right? Like at home, I've got tools on the wall, tools on the workbench. I realize that's not a luxury that everyone has, but when you're working on a bike, it's nice to have your tools right at hand. So this is a great solution for that. Let's talk the group. Shimano Ultegra 12-speed Di2. I love the feel of these guys. Been riding a lot more SRAM stuff recently. The new SRAM levers also feel great in hand. These are right in line there. Slightly different shape, but similar feel. The braking power is fantastic. The braking modulation, same. It may be a bit weaker when you're up top than when you're down in the drops, but it's still super powerful. Love how these brakes feel. And yes, it's Shimano, so of course the shifting is just precise all the time. This came with a compact 5034, perfectly adequate for all types of all-around riding. If you're racing, you might want a slightly big one. I believe the max chainring size on this is a 53, which is nice to have a double that big and still clearance for 40. This bit right here is often a limiter for tire clearance. This is the semi-wireless group, right? And that the shifters are wireless, and you've got the battery that lives in the post, and then wires run from the derailleurs up in there. Stock cockpit here. With his background building custom bikes and doing all these frame fits, Aiden's got a lot of great background and context for what is good for folks. Bars come in everything from 80 to 120 stem lengths, and width center to center from 38 to 44. There's also a bit of flare at the bottom. It's an arrow-ish shape, but one that is comfortable, at least to my paws. Sometimes arrow bars in the back have hard edges. This is like nice and rounded. Plus, I think it just looks beautiful. If it doesn't fit, it doesn't matter how it looks. So I would encourage you, as always, to measure 3 times. Buy once. If you're not sure whether, this bike or any other bike, if you're not sure, you're sure, pick up the phone and call the company. And if they don't work with you on making sure you're satisfied on the fit, maybe don't buy that one. My bike, after speaking with Aiden, my test bike here came in perfectly dialed, so had it both my cake and eating it too, as far as the nice aesthetics of the one-piece cockpit and the fit, critically, that agrees with me and was dialed. A couple things to keep in mind with integrated cockpits. Stem length is a thing, bar width is a thing, yes, but then there's also the whole package of like how it fits into the bike's fit. There's some pitfalls here I want to help you avoid. One with width is making sure you're sure we're talking the same width. Buddy Tim just bought a bike that he thought was going to be 40 center to center because the bars on the website said 40s. They were not 40 here. They were 40 down here at the flared out drops, and not center to center, but outside to outside. So the measurement he thought was 40 ended up being a 35. Very different fit. So err on the side of over communicating about that if you're not buying a bike in person. Even if you are buying a bike in person, just measure the bike you have and communicate thoroughly to make sure that you're getting what you want. So the where bars are measured can differ with the bike industry. One of our many fun things we like to do. A second critical piece is where the bar sits in space relative to your saddle. I would encourage you to know your saddle to bar drop, where you can measure the top of the saddle to the floor and measure the top of the bars to the floor and subtract those numbers to know the difference. And then ask the company what the maximum height is for the top of the bar and what the minimum height is for the top of the bar for whatever size you have. And then you've got some decently close numbers to compare. Yes, bottom bracket drop comes into that equation a bit, but it's mostly the difference between your saddle height and your the top of the handlebars. So just make sure you're sure. And yes, look at the frame stack, the frame reach, effective top tube. These are all good numbers, but it can be hard to just go off numbers like head tube height if you're trying to compare a bike you have with a bike you're looking at to know how you will end up with your total position. So just a couple things to watch out for, and again, err on the side of over communicating pricing. What does this cost? With the barf-inducing roller coaster that is the tariff situation in the United States, I am not comfortable saying what the price is because it's changing all the time. It was $7,500-ish for this particular build with the Shimano Ultegra 12-speed and these zip wheels. What it will be next week, what it will be a month from now when you're watching this, I have no idea. So contact Aiden for specific pricing. The rest of the world probably has more stable pricing. For the US, I don't know. So bottom line, this 51 Sika is a beautiful looking and a beautiful handling road bike. I am happy with the feel. I am sad to see this one go. Thanks to Aiden for letting me hold on to this for many months. Now it's coming back at you. Let me know what questions you have about this bike. I'll try to do my best to answer. If I don't know, I'll ask Aiden. He can jump in the comments below. Please remember, over communicate and think about your overall fit when you're buying a bike, whether it's this or any other. And whether it is this or any other, I hope you can get out there and enjoy the ride.